May 26, 2012, Memorial Day weekend in Miami, Florida. Rudy Eugene was born on February 4th, 1981. He grew up in North Miami, played football at North Miami Beach High School. After graduation, he bounced around car washes, telemarketing gigs, selling CDs on street corners, and his arrest record stretched back to when he was 16, marijuana possession and assault charges. And in 2004, he got in it with his mother during an argument. He threatened her, and got arrested for resisting when the cops showed up. But to the people who actually knew Eugene, they described someone completely different, quiet, non-threatening, someone who carried a Bible around. He had even done some volunteer work with Miami's homeless population. Miami Beach is packed wall-to-wall for Urban Beach Week, music, crowds, and a suffocating Florida heat. Security footage shows a gray Chevrolet pulling up in a parked area around noon on May 26th. Rudy Eugene gets out, joins the chaos for maybe 30 to 40 minutes, then gets back into his car and drives away. Eugene would then later abandon his car on the MacArthur Causeway, the bridge connecting Miami Beach to the mainland, and inside the vehicle, a Bible and 5 empty water bottles. And it's brutally hot that day. For some reason, Eugene starts walking 3 miles back toward Miami. Somewhere along that walk, he begins stripping off his clothes. His shoes gone, his shirt discarded, his pants left on the pavement. He even tosses his driver's license aside. And by the time he reaches the west end of the causeway, near the Arts and Entertainment District, he's completely naked. Around 1:55 in the afternoon, Eugene finds Ronald Papo lying in the shade under the viaduct. He's trying to escape the heat. Eugene starts approaching him, singing the song, A Lover's Concerto, a 1965 hit by the Toys. Papo thinks this may just be an eccentric guy, a little weird, but completely harmless. But then Eugene's whole demeanor changes. He accuses Papo of stealing his Bible, but there's no Bible on Papo, because he left it in his car. Eugene says, "You, me, buddy, and no one else here. I'm going to kill you." Security cameras from a local building captures what happens next. 18 minutes. Eugene beats Papo unconscious. He removes his pants, and then starts biting. He tears away Papo's face. Everything above the beard line. The nose, completely gone. Forehead, both cheeks ripped away. Eyebrows. He gouges out Papo's left eye entirely. Damages the right eye so severely, will need to be covered with a skin flap. In between the biting, Eugene slams Papo's face onto the concrete sidewalk, and uses wrestling holds to strangle him. Papo never even cursed at Eugene, he never even provoked him, and he never even fought back. And luckily, a cyclist nearby rides past and calls 911 immediately. A Miami police officer arrives at 2:13 p.m. He starts shouting commands. "Stop, get away from him, stop." Eugene turns toward the cop. Pieces of flesh in his mouth. He growls. And witnesses say it sounds like an animal and keeps attacking. The officer fires once, hits Eugene, but that doesn't stop him. So he fires 5 more times before Rudy Eugene collapses and dies on the pavement. Paramedics rush Papo to Jackson Memorial Hospital. Roughly 75 to 80% of his face is missing, both eyes effectively destroyed, and the medical staff isn't optimistic about his chances. And within hours, the theory starts spreading. Bath salts. Even the president of the Miami Fraternal Order of Police describes cases he's seen where people take off their clothes, suddenly having superhuman strength. They become violent. They are burning up from the inside. Their organs are reaching a level that most would die. And everything lines up. The nudity, the violence, the fact that the officer's first bullet hit Eugene, but he kept going. Even the growling. And the media runs with it, calling it Miami Zombie Attack, the Causeway Cannibal. And online, people start making jokes about the zombie apocalypse. Memes spread comparing it to The Walking Dead. And the story goes viral worldwide as another entry in the growing catalog of insane Florida man stories. And weird enough, when the toxicology report comes back, there are no bath salts, no LSD, no cocaine, and no methamphetamine. Nothing. just a small amount of marijuana. THC levels so low they're basically non-existent. But through the autopsy they do find something. Unidentified pills in Eugene's stomach, and no one ever figures out what they are. And despite the attack being focused almost entirely on biting, there is no human flesh in Eugene's stomach, meaning he had bitten, chewed, torn, but hadn't swallowed any of it. And according to the reports, Rudy Eugene was essentially sober. So police closed the investigation not long after as a random attack with no clear motive. And as for Rana Papo, he actually survives. He had spent months in intensive care, went through multiple reconstructive surgeries, trying to rebuild what's left. And on July 19, 2012, Papo gives his first interview to police, nearly 2 months after the attack. He thanks the officer for saving his life, and he describes what Eugene did to him. He just ripped me to ribbons. He chewed on my face, plucked out my eyes. My face is all bent and mashed up. The damage is so severe that he's effectively blind. And luckily, as of 2026, Rana Papo is still alive, still dealing with his severe injuries. And still, the entire case is still honestly questionable. That being that Rudy Eugene was practically sober during the entire attack. And it really begs the question of what makes a man so angry that they would attack someone so brutally. February 28, 2013. A quiet Thursday night in Seffner, Florida, a small suburb about 15 miles east of Tampa. Seffner sits on what geologists call Sinkhole Alley. This stretch of west central Florida, particularly around Tampa and Hillsborough County, sees more ground collapses than almost anywhere else in the state. The entire region is built on limestone. Over thousands of years, slightly acidic rainwater seeps through the soil, slowly dissolving the limestone bedrock underneath. This creates underground cavities, empty spaces where solid rock used to be. And most of the time, these voids stay hidden, and the ground above them, held up by layers of clay and sand, remains stable. And people even live on top of them for years without knowing. But sometimes, without warning, those layers give way. The ground caves in suddenly, pulling down everything above it. And these are called cover collapse sinkholes. They're the most dangerous type because when they happen within just seconds. One moment the ground is solid, the next it's gone. Jeffrey Bush was 37 years old. He worked in landscaping, did various jobs around Tampa. People who knew him described him as quiet, hardworking, devoted to his family. He wasn't married, he had no kids, but he was very close to his brother. In fact, he even lived with his brother, Jeremy Bush, with his partner Rachel Wicker, and Jeremy's 2-year-old daughter. And on the night of February 28th, Jeffrey went to bed in his bedroom around 10:30 or so. Jeremy and Rachel were still awake in another part of the house. The 2-year-old was asleep in her room, and the house itself was very quiet. There's no unusual sounds, no unsettling noises that would suggest anything was wrong. But around 11 p.m., a loud boom shakes the house. Jeremy hears it and freezes, and then he hears his brother screaming, "Help me! Jeremy, help me!" Jeremy runs toward Jeffrey's bedroom. Rachel is right behind him, holding their daughter. The whole house feels like it's shaking. Rachel would even later describe it feeling like an earthquake. Jeremy reaches the bedroom door and opens it, and the room itself is gone. Where Jeremy's bed used to be, there is now a gaping hole in the floor, maybe 15, 20 feet across. The bed, the dresser, the nightstand, all of it has just dropped straight down into the earth, with the dust still hanging in the air. Jeremy can hear Jeffrey's voice coming from somewhere below, muffled by the dirt and debris. "Jeremy, help me." Without thinking, Jeremy jumps right in. He's clawing through dirt, broken furniture, pieces of drywall, and the ground underneath his feet keeps shifting. More dirt keeps falling from the edges of the hole, and he's sinking deeper, scrambling to find his brother, but he can't see anything and he can't reach him. He later described it as feeling like a tornado sucking everything down, and Rachel would call 911. The fire rescue arrives within minutes. Douglas Duvall is one of the first on the scene. He rushes into the house and finds Jeremy still in the hole, still digging and still calling out to Jeffrey. And the edges of the hole are crumbling. Cracks are spreading through what's left of the bedroom floor. Vol reaches into the hole, grabs Jeremy's arm, and pulls him out. And he nearly gets pulled in himself. The ground is just that unstable. Jeremy is screaming, fighting to get back in, desperate to reach his brother. And the other responders had to physically restrain him. And fire crews assessed the situation. They could see the hole still growing. Within the next hour, it expands from about 20 feet wide to 30 feet. The depth itself is harder to measure, but is deep, at least 60 feet down based on what they can see. And they quickly decide it's too risky to send anyone in. The whole house could collapse at any moment. Around 3 a.m., they attempt one last rescue effort. An engineer volunteers to be lowered into the hole using a rope and harness. He's maybe about 6 feet down before the walls start shifting. Dirt and debris begins sliding. So they pull him back up because it's too dangerous. They even try other methods. Cameras lowered on cables into the darkness. Listening devices to pick up sounds, breathing, movement, literally anything. They call Jeffrey's name over and over, but nothing, just silence. By the morning, geological engineers arrive to evaluate the site. They bring ground-penetrating radar equipment, run soil stability tests, and the results are clear. This is a cover collapse sinkhole. The underground cavity had been growing for who knows how long, being completely invisible from the surface. And when the roof of the cavity finally gave way, everything above it dropped straight down. The engineers briefly consider excavation. Could they even dig safely? Bring in heavy equipment to try to recover the body? But the answer is no. The walls of the sinkhole are too unstable. Ground-penetrating radar shows the cavity extends underneath neighboring properties, and any attempt to dig will likely trigger another collapse, potentially pulling down more of the house and endangering nearby homes and rescue workers. And in the end, they had to accept that recovering Jeffrey's body was impossible, and he's presumed dead, buried in place, and the family is devastated. And over the next few days, the rest of the house is condemned. The structure is too compromised to salvage, and demolition crews carefully bring down what's left of the house, and the hole itself is quickly filled to try to stabilize the ground, and the site itself is fenced off with chain link barriers. Hillsborough County purchases the property and also buys the house next door as a buffer zone, and nobody will be allowed to build there again. Jeremy Bush speaks to the media. He's clearly traumatized. He tells reporters about hearing Jeffrey scream for help, about jumping into the hole and not being able to reach him, and about the helplessness of being pulled out while his brother was still down there, screaming. And in the passing months, both Jeremy and Rachel struggle with heavy PTSD, nightmares, and even guilt, with that night replaying every single night, wondering if there was something else they could have done, some way he could have saved his own brother. And in August 2015, 2.5 years after Jeffrey Bush died, the sinkhole opens again. It's at almost the exact same spot, about 17 feet wide this time, 20 feet deep, and all the gravel that was filled to try to stabilize the ground had completely dropped back down into the void. And in July of 2023, 10 years after Jeffrey died, the sinkhole opens a third time, again the same location, and the ground just keeps collapsing till whatever cavity still exists underneath. And as for Jeremy, he has to see his brother's name in the headlines once again, as it's almost like the ground won't let him rest. Jeffrey Bush's body was never recovered. He's still buried somewhere beneath tons of gravel and limestone, 60 feet down in the earth. January 1st, 2024, New Year's Day in Miami, Florida. One of, if not the most famous and bizarre stories coming from Florida happens. A shaky cell phone video captures downtown Miami around 8:30 p.m. Dozens of police cars are lined up bumper to bumper along Biscayne Boulevard, helicopters circling overhead and people running in every single direction. And the footage hits TikTok within minutes, and by the next morning, it's everywhere. The first 911 calls come in around 8:30 p.m. Somewhere between 50 and 60 kids are causing problems throughout Bayside. Fighting breaks out in multiple spots, and witnesses report seeing some of them carrying sticks. And then someone starts setting off fireworks. And these were commercial-grade fireworks being lit at ground level, right in the middle of a shopping complex. And the bangs of the fireworks echo off the buildings. Sharp, loud cracks that sound exactly like gunfire, if you're not expecting fireworks. One 911 caller even reports shots being fired. Parents would grab their kids and bolt for the exits. And the store employees inside the mall started pulling security gates down mid-shift, locking themselves inside. People are diving behind cars, ducking into doorways, trying to get away from what they think is an active shooter. The Miami Police Department gets multiple calls reporting shots fired at Bayside Marketplace. And based on those reports, they respond like they're dealing with a mass shooting in progress, and over 60 police officers from multiple agencies converge on downtown Miami. Officers move through the complex trying to locate the shooter, secure the area, and evacuate civilians. From the air, from the street, from every single angle, it just looks massive. Dozens of cars with their lights flashing, helicopters circling, armed officers in tactical gear moving through the mall. And as officers sweep through Bayside, the situation starts clarifying. There is no active shooter. The gunshot sounds are just fireworks. But the crowd of teenagers is still causing problems. And police observe a group of about 10 to 15 juveniles beating a man near the marketplace. Other groups are smashing car windows throughout the parking areas, stealing phones and other items. Officers pursuing some of the suspects found one 14-year-old in possession of a stolen handgun. The gun wasn't actually fired, but he still had it. And finding a gun in the middle of this chaos justifies everything about the response. The shots fired calls suddenly make sense, even if no shots were even fired. And by the time the officers restore order, 4 juveniles are in custody. Body cam footage shows the responding officers, showing them clearing the mall, talking to frightened shoppers, securing the scene, with no unusual sightings, no creatures, just chaotic teenage brawl that got out of hand. And by roughly 11 p.m., the situation is completely resolved, and the mall reopens. But people at the Bayside that night filmed everything. The running crowds, the police arriving in force, the helicopters overhead. Those videos hit social media platforms such as TikTok, Reddit, and Instagram almost immediately. And in some of the videos shot from a distance, or they're filmed in low light, there are shapes, dark silhouettes moving through the scene that doesn't quite look right. And one TikTok user posts a video claiming that he has VHS footage showing the creatures clearly. The post itself gets 14 million views before it's deleted. And the footage itself is later proven to be either old unrelated clips or digitally altered material. But by then, the narrative has already taken off. The first alien posts appear within hours of the incident. 8 to 10 foot tall shadow beings spotted in Miami, aliens walking through the mall during police lockdown. And the theory itself builds momentum fast. If the police response was that massive, something crazy must have caused it. 60 officers, multiple helicopters, and a complete downtown lockdown. That doesn't happen for a simple teenage fight, right? So the internet starts filling in those gaps. Extraterrestrial beings, portals opening in downtown Miami, a government cover-up in progress. The police are covering up portals, UFOs are landing at the Bayside, a government experiment gone wrong. And this incident happens in early 2024, right in the middle of renewed UFO hysteria. The period of time where the Pentagon was releasing declassified footage of alleged UFO sightings. And although the story itself is insane and bizarre, the hashtag of Miami Mall Aliens starts trending worldwide, with billions of views across TikTok, X, and Reddit. And the Miami police trying to shut down the rumors very quickly. There were no aliens, no UFOs or ETs. No airports were closed, no power outages. This was just a group of juveniles fighting. And he explains that the 8 to 10 foot tall beings that the people were seeing in the videos are police officers in their shadows, that the lighting conditions at Bayside that night were because of the street lamps, police car lights, or storefront lighting that created elongated shadows. And when you film from that distance with a phone camera and the footage gets compressed, the shadows stretch and distort. But I will say, the justification for the 8 to 10 foot tall beings honestly just sounds dumb. Of course, I think the actual idea of there actually being aliens here is even more ridiculous, but the explanation honestly doesn't make much sense. Most of these police officers weren't even 6 feet tall, and they're claiming that lighting conditions would make them appear to be 8 to 10 feet tall of shadows. To me, that doesn't really add up, and I feel like that's just a lazy explanation. And that's actually the problem too. Once a conspiracy theory goes viral, the official denials just feed into it. Even though the Miami police say there were no aliens, to the people who already believe it, that's exactly what the government would say during a cover-up. And the simple explanations of shadows, lighting, and perspective almost seems like it's insulting the people's intelligence. And the story keeps growing because of the new evidence that keeps getting attached to the story. Videos from completely different events start getting shared with claims that they were from Bayside that night. Even old UFO footage gets relabeled. AI-generated images start circulating, showing what the creatures supposedly look like. And despite these claims really having zero verification, the algorithm itself loves it. The people love it. The engagement is through the roof. And with more views means more recommendations, meaning more people see the videos, getting them to form their own opinions before they even see the debunking. And even today, more than 2 years later, the story itself still surfaces regularly. People debating on what really happened that night. And the Miami Mall incident is one of the funniest cases I've ever seen. It might be the best example of how misinformation moves when you combine shaky footage and a bizarre plot to a normal case. And I find it even more funny that once the narrative even took hold, no amount of official statements or justification could even fully kill it. 2 years later, people still argue about the incident, if it really was aliens in that mall. And maybe it's so big because of the idea that the alien story is just more interesting than the actual truth. And as you'll see time and time again on the internet, an interesting story will always outlive a boring fact. May 9th, 2021, Mother's Day. A Sunday morning in St. Johns County, Florida. Tristyn Bailey's family realized she hadn't come home from the night before. Tristyn Bailey was 13 years old in the spring of 2021. She was a 7th grader at Patriot Oaks Academy in St. Johns County, one of 5 siblings in a family that lived in Durbin Crossing, a quiet suburban neighborhood north of Jacksonville. She was a cheerleader, competed on an all-star team, and she was the kind of kid who always was smiling in the team photos. Aiden Fusi was 14 years old. He lived in the same neighborhood. He went to the same school. He knew Tristyn from classes. And Fusi had a history, suspensions for fights, threats that got reported to administrators, and even in 2020, he threatened to slit throats at school. Saturday night, May 8th, going into Sunday morning, Tristyn was hanging out with friends at the Saddlebrook Park Community Center in Durbin Crossing, and Aiden Fusi was there too. Earlier that evening, Fusi had texted her, phone records showing the messages, him suggesting they meet up, keeping it casual. And around 1:15 a.m., Tristyn told her friend she was heading out. She mentioned meeting a school acquaintance, and she trusted him enough to go. Before leaving his house that night, Fusi had taken a buck knife from his father's collection. Surveillance cameras caught them leaving the community center together at approximately 1:45 a.m. Fusi led Tristyn toward a wooden area at the edge of the neighborhood, near a retention pond. It was dark, isolated, and away from houses. And what happened there between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. was documented only through forensic evidence. Fusi would beat her first, blunt force trauma to the head, and then he started stabbing. 114 stab wounds total, 35 of them concentrated on her head and neck, the fatal injuries, and 49 were defensive wounds on her arms and hands. She tried fighting back, tried to shield herself, grabbed the knife, and pushed him away. And the attack itself was prolonged, minutes of sustained violence. And the knife itself even broke during the assault. The tip snapped off and lodged into her skull. And Tristyn Bailey would bleed to death in those woods. 3:27 a.m. Surveillance cameras capture Fousey walking back through the neighborhood alone. He's wearing different shoes. His pants are dark and wet with blood. He stops at the retention pond, throws the broken knife in, and continues home. His mother, Crystal Smith, later said he seemed panicked when he got home, but she claims she didn't ask why. Fousey went to the bathroom, washed his hands, and blood remained in the sink and drain pipes. He stripped off his jeans soaked with blood, and that morning, Crystal Smith washed them. Sunday morning, Mother's Day. Tristyn's family woke up to find her missing. Calls to her phone went unanswered. Friends hadn't seen her. And around mid-morning, they reported her missing. And around 6 p.m., a resident found Tristyn's body in the woods, partially hidden by vegetation, with her clothes soaked in blood. And within hours, over 1,000 people gathered for a candlelight vigil, and the community was completely devastated. Detectives reviewed the surveillance footage. Multiple cameras showed Tristyn and Fousey walking together at around 1:45 a.m., heading toward the woods. And at 3:27 a.m., cameras showed Fousey walking back alone. Investigators went to Fousey's house that night. He claimed he had been out walking but came home around 2 a.m. His mother even backed him up. But detectives noticed his shoes were muddy. They asked if they could take them, and Fousey would agree. They asked about his clothes, and his mom said she had already washed his jeans that morning because they were muddy. And on May 10th, Monday morning, detectives arrested Aiden Fousey on second-degree murder charges. The evidence was building quickly. Of the surveillance footage, the timeline inconsistencies, the muddy shoes, and the washed jeans. And while sitting in the holding area, Fousey took out his phone and snapped a selfie, and he posted it onto Snapchat. Has anyone seen Tristyn lately? The photo showed him making a peace sign, and the image spread everywhere within hours. His remorseless smirk shocked people. He was joking about the girl he killed while sitting in custody. And during interrogation, Fousey's story kept changing. At first, he was just walking around, came home early, and didn't see Tristyn after they split up. And then they walked together, went to the woods, got into an argument, Tristyn grabbed the knife, and he accidentally stabbed her during a struggle. And then, demons made him do it. He wasn't in control, and something took over. And of course, none of it held up. Detectives searched Fousey's home, and the jeans that Crystal Smith washed still shows extensive blood spatter under luminol testing. And it was Tristyn's blood, and the pattern matched someone actively stabbing a victim, not defending themselves. Blood in the bathroom sink and drain pipes showed attempted cleanup. Divers searched the retention pond and recovered the buck knife. The broken tip matched the fragment lodged in Tristyn's skull. DNA confirmed Tristyn's blood was on the blade, and the charge was upgraded to first-degree murder. And later on May 27, 2021, Crystal Smith was arrested for tampering with evidence. She entered a no-contest plea and was released on bond. And over the following months, friends came forward. Multiple people had told detectives Fousey had talked about wanting to kill someone for months, that it was planned, and he specifically talked about dragging a random person in the woods and stabbing them just to see what it would feel like. His girlfriend testified about the murder fantasies he shared in detail, and eventually, Fousey would even admit the truth. Not claiming demons, it wasn't an accident, or any loss of control. He admitted that he planned it. He chose Tristyn because she was convenient, someone who'd trust him enough to walk into the woods alone. And it was a thrill kill, no motive beyond curiosity. And it was pretty clear the whole thing was 100% premeditated. February 6, 2023, nearly 2 years after Tristyn's death, Aiden Fousey, now 16, pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in adult court. The courtroom was packed. Victim impact statements were delivered. Tristyn's sister called Fousey a monster. Your brother said, "You took my sister from me." Tristyn's mother, "My baby girl fought for her life. She fought, and you stole her future. I miss her laugh, her hugs. I'll never get those back. Fousey spoke himself, reading from a prepared statement, an apology, where prosecutors even noted that it sounded scripted and insincere. And during the proceedings, Fousey was even seen smiling. And the judge would later sentence him to life in prison. And the case itself exploded online, especially the Snapchat photo that spread everywhere, and it quickly became the symbol of the case, of a 14-year-old smirking about murder while in police custody. And on social media, of hashtag Aiden Fousey was banned, because some videos were glorifying Fousey, and of course they were eventually removed, but not before hundreds of thousands of people had already seen them. And unfortunately for the Bailey family, this isn't a true crime story to consume online. It's now the empty seat at the table, the graduations and milestones that will now never happen.